The grand chamber of the HFY Dominion was filled with tension. Representatives from over 50 alien civilizations had gathered, their voices echoing through the massive halls. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Velrax, his reptilian scales gleaming under the artificial lights. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the holographic image floating before him. It was a planet. Earth. They refused to fight. Velrax growled. Again. A murmur spread through the chamber. Are they cowards? A warrior from the Brule Empire spat. Perhaps they are weak, suggested a diplomat from the Orvash Alliance. Velrax let the whispers continue before slamming his fist onto the metal table. The impact sent a sharp crack through the air, silencing everyone. We cannot allow this. The war against the Broken Horde threatens us all. Every species must fight, including the humans. A deep robotic voice responded. They have given their answer, Ambassador. All eyes turned to the far end of the room. A lone figure stood there, Kara Solis, the human representative. She was calm, her expression unreadable. The glowing lights of the holograms reflected off her uniform, but she showed no sign of fear. Velrax narrowed his eyes. Why does humanity always refuse? Are you too afraid to fight? Kara exhaled slowly. Then she stepped forward. Afraid. Her voice was steady. No, we are not afraid of war. We are afraid of what happens when we enter one. A silence followed. Some scoffed. Others leaned in, intrigued. Velrax let out a harsh laugh. What nonsense. Every species fights for survival. Yet you, the so-called mighty humans, act as if war is beneath you. Kara's eyes darkened. No, war is not beneath us. War is behind us, and we made sure it never comes again. She tapped a small device on her wrist. A hidden file appeared in the holographic display. It was old, ancient, a classified document from humanity's forgotten past. The aliens leaned forward as the words appeared. The Last War, Final Records, Year 2236. A few aliens gasped. Even Velrax, despite his arrogance, grew still. Kara watched them carefully. Do you truly wish to know why we refuse to fight? The chamber was silent. And then she played the recording. The lost recordings. A deep, weary voice spoke. The voice of a man who had seen too much death. This is General Elias Carter, commander of Earth's last war. If you are hearing this, then the galaxy has forgotten the truth. The hologram flickered. Images of burning cities, dead planets, and shattered fleets appeared. The chamber of alien leaders watched in horrified silence. We were pushed to the brink, the recording continued. So we did what we had to do. We unleashed weapons that should have never been made. We erased entire worlds. We wiped out entire species, not because we wanted to, but because we had no choice. The screen showed a dead star system. Planets turned to ash. No survivors. Velrax swallowed hard. This cannot be real. But Kara's gaze remained cold. It is. The voice of General Carter spoke again. We learned that day, when humanity fights, we do not stop. We do not hold back. We do not leave an enemy standing. That war cost us everything. Another image appeared. A broken earth. Cities in ruin. Billions lost. We swore to never fight again. Not out of fear, but because if we do, the galaxy will not survive it. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Kara stepped forward. This is why we refuse war. Because when we fight, it is not a war. It is extinction. A warning ignored. Velrax clenched his jaw. He could feel the fear in the room. Some understood the warning. Others did not. And that was dangerous. You expect us to believe this? He finally snapped. A story. An empty threat. Kara met his gaze. Believe what you want. She turned off the hologram. But I promise you this, if you push humanity into war, you will learn the truth. And by then, it will be too late. She walked out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Some leaders whispered in fear, others in doubt. Velarax. He smiled, because he had just made up his mind. Humanity would fight, whether they wanted to or not. Velarax stood in his command chamber, his claws tapping against the polished steel table. The hologram of Carasolis still flickered before him, frozen at the moment she had left the Galactic Council. Her warning had been clear. If you push humanity into war, you will learn the truth. And by then, it will be too late. He bared his fangs in amusement. Too late for whom? The HFY Dominion had ruled for centuries. They had crushed rebellions, enslaved weaker species, and expanded their empire unchecked. And now, the fragile Galactic Council expected him to fear a race that refused to fight. Ridiculous. The humans had technology. That was undeniable. But they lacked the will for war. Velarax turned to his warlords, his voice sharp and commanding. Prepare the fleets. We are going to Earth. Earth's final warning. On Luna Base, orbiting Earth, alarms blared across the command center. General Darius Cole stood before a massive war table, staring at the holographic projection of the incoming fleet. The HFY were coming. Cole exhaled, his expression grim. How many ships? A young officer swallowed hard. 4 armadas, sir. Nearly 1,000 warships. They'll be in Earth's orbit within 72 hours. The room fell into a tense silence. Humanity had seen war before, but not like this. Not for centuries. Cole's hands clenched into fists. They warned the galaxy. They begged to be left alone. But now, the choice was being taken from them. The decision. The United Human Nations gathered in emergency session. Representatives from every colony, every faction, every military division stood in tense silence as President Alexandra Gray took the stage. Her voice was calm, but behind it, there was something cold. We did not ask for this war, but war has come to us. She looked around the chamber, her gaze unyielding. You all know our history. You know what happened the last time we unleashed our full strength. The galaxy has forgotten, but we have not. A heavy silence filled the room. Every human knew what she meant. Earth's last war had nearly wiped them out. It had turned the stars to ashes, and they had vowed, never again. Gray took a deep breath. We have 2 choices, surrender, or remind the galaxy why we swore never to fight again. The chamber was silent. Then, General Cole stepped forward. His voice was steady. Madam President, if we must fight, we will end this war before it begins. Gray met his gaze. Then she nodded. And with that, humanity made its choice. The war had begun. The quiet before the storm. Far above Earth, deep within Luna Base, a hidden fleet awoke. Ships that had not moved in centuries, weapons that had been sealed away, a forgotten power buried under treaties and fear. As the HFY fleet approached, a single message was sent across the void. A final warning. Turn back now. This is your only chance. But Velarax only laughed when he received it. He had no idea what was about to be unleashed. Velarax stood at the command deck of his flagship, the Dreadfang, watching as his fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth. 1,000 warships, each bristling with the finest weapons the HFY Dominion had ever forged. He sneered. This is the mighty Earth, he muttered, staring at the blue planet below. Pathetic. Across the bridge, his officers eagerly awaited his orders. The plan was simple. Demand surrender, bombard their defenses, and take control of the planet. The humans would break quickly, just like every other species the HFY had conquered. Velarax leaned forward, his fangs glinting under the dim lights. Open the comms. Let's hear their final words before we crush them. A flicker, then a transmission opened. President Alexandra Gray appeared on screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried a quiet weight. Velarax chuckled. I assume you've come to surrender. Gray did not flinch. No, I've come to warn you. Velarax's amusement faded. Warn me. Gray leaned forward slightly. You have made a terrible mistake. The XL-FAR warriors around Velarax laughed. A single human, warning the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Ridiculous. Velarax smirked. Your weapons are outdated, your fleets are weak, and your kind fears war. Gray's expression did not change. Then she said something that made Velarax pause. Do you know why we fear war? Velarax narrowed his eyes. Because you are weak. Gray shook her head. No, because we are not. Before Velarax could reply, his sensors flashed red. A warning siren blared across the command deck. One of his officers turned in shock. Sir, multiple energy signatures detected, coming from the dark side of the moon. Velarax snarled. Impossible. There were no human fleets detected before arrival. But then, the void of space shifted. Something massive moved in the shadows, and one by one, they appeared. The Forgotten Fleet awakens. From the darkness of Luna Base, colossal warships began to emerge. Sleek, black behemoths, ancient and terrifying. Their hulls gleamed with a strange, unreadable script, and they were unlike anything the XL-FAR had ever seen. Velarax's claws tightened. What are those? His sensors struggled to scan them, but one thing was clear. These ships were not new. They were old. Older than his dominion. Older than any recorded XL-FAR conquest. And yet, they looked brand new. A deep voice echoed through his ship's speakers. General Darius Cole. This is the Sol Defense Fleet. Stand down now. This is your final warning. Velarax gritted his teeth. Destroy them. Across his fleet, the XL-FAR warships opened fire. Massive plasma lances and energy torpedoes ripped through space, heading straight for the human warships. But then, the human ships moved, and in a single moment, the war changed forever. The fall of the First Armada. Velarax had expected resistance. He had not expected annihilation. The human ships did not dodge the attacks. They absorbed them. Their hulls shimmered, redirecting the energy blasts harmlessly into space. Then, they returned fire. Velarax watched in horror as a single human warship unleashed a beam of light that tore through 3 XL-FAR destroyers in an instant. The weapons were far beyond anything he had ever seen. One by one, the XL-FAR ships exploded. The First Armada wiped out in less than 5 minutes. Velarax's breath caught in his throat. This isn't possible. But it was. And the worst was yet to come. A message to the galaxy. As the battle unfolded, President Gray sent out a single broadcast, one that reached every major civilization in the galaxy. Her face was calm, but her voice was sharp. To those who stand against us, know this. Humanity has tried to live in peace. We have tried to forget our past. But if war is forced upon us... She paused. Then, her final words sent a shiver through every species watching. We will remind you why we swore never to fight again. The broadcast ended, and in the depths of space, the war had truly begun. Velarax gripped the edges of his command chair, his claws digging into the metal. This wasn't war. This was slaughter. The mighty XL-FAR fleet, the unstoppable conquerors of the galaxy, were being erased in minutes. The human warships moved like ghosts in the void, their sleek black hulls untouched by enemy fire. Every shot the XL-FAR fired was absorbed, redirected, or simply ignored. And when the humans returned fire, entire XL-FAR dreadnoughts vanished in explosions so bright they lit up Earth's night sky. Velarax's second-in-command, a veteran warrior with over 50 conquests, turned to him with wide, terrified eyes. Sir, what do we do? Velarax's jaw clenched. We regroup. We call for reinforcements. We. Before he could finish, an urgent alarm screamed through the ship. Massive energy surge detected, right behind us. Velarax turned just in time to see it. A human ship, a monstrous, planet-sized war machine, emerged from hyperspace directly inside their formation. Its name appeared on the scanners. Titan. Velrax felt his heart stop. The Titan-class dreadnoughts were myths, legends spoken in hushed voices across the galaxy. Ships so powerful that even the Galactic Council had forbidden their use. Yet here it was. Real, awake, and aimed directly at him. The first true strike. For the first time in his life, Velrax felt fear. All ships, retreat. Retreat. But it was already too late. The Titan began to power up, its central cannon glowing with an eerie white energy. Velrax barely had time to process what was happening before a single beam of light lanced out. Silent, precise, absolute. The energy wave erased the entire left flank of his armada in a heartbeat. Not destroyed. Not even vaporized. Simply gone. No wreckage. No survivors. Just a void where thousands of ships had once been. Velrax's mouth went dry. What kind of weapons are these? The comms crackled. A familiar voice. General Darius Cole. Velrax, you were warned. Velrax's claws trembled. We surrender. The human commander was silent for a moment. Then, his voice came cold and sharp. No, you don't. The transmission cut off. And the human fleet advanced. Nowhere to run. Velrax's remaining warships desperately tried to escape. They activated their hyperdrives, pushing their engines to the limit. But something was wrong. Sir, one of his engineers cried out. Something is disrupting our jump systems. Velrax's eyes widened. Then he saw it. Earth's moon began to shift. No, not the moon. Something behind it. Something massive. A ring. A planetary-sized structure hidden in Earth's orbit. And it was activating. The final lockdown. The colossal structure, the Sol Gate, began to pulse with deep blue light. For centuries, humanity had hidden its true defenses. But now, the cage had been unlocked. A gravitational field wrapped around the entire sector, cutting off any escape route. The XL-FAR fleet was trapped. Velrax gasped. No, this isn't possible. He turned to his officers, but their faces were pale with terror. The XL-FAR had come to conquer. But now, they were rats in a cage. And humanity was done playing nice. A message to the universe. Across the galaxy, species watched the broadcast in horrified silence. The most powerful war fleet in the known universe, reduced to dust. And humanity wasn't even breaking a sweat. Then President Gray appeared again, her eyes cold and unforgiving. We did not ask for this war. We did not want it. She exhaled, then spoke the final words that sent chills through every world watching. But you forced our hand. And now, the real war begins. The screen faded to black. Velrax stared at the view screen, his mind struggling to process the horror before him. The XL-FAR Dominion, once the most feared empire in the galaxy, had been shattered in a single battle. Their fleets, their weapons, their greatest warships, all reduced to nothing. And now, humanity's true war machine was waking up. The Silent One's rise. Far beneath the surface of Mars, deep within forgotten bunkers that had been sealed for centuries, something stirred. Machines the size of mountains roared to life, their ancient cores pulsing with raw energy. At the heart of it all, a single holographic figure appeared, a man long thought to be dead. Project Revenant was online. Across the system, hidden facilities on the moons of Jupiter and Titan cracked open, revealing dormant warships that had been sleeping for generations. These were not ordinary ships. They were the Leviathans, designed for a war humanity had never wanted to fight. Until now. A galaxy in fear. The broadcast of Earth's counterattack had spread across the entire galactic network. From the mighty halls of the Council worlds to the farthest outposts in the Outer Rim, every species watched in absolute horror. Humanity had been underestimated, mocked, ignored, thought to be weak. Now those same species were realizing the truth. Humanity was never weak. They had simply been holding back. And now, the chains were coming off. The last stand of Velarax. Velarax clenched his claws as his ship's sensors desperately searched for an escape route. His remaining fleet, barely a fraction of what it once was, had nowhere to run. The Soul Gate had closed off hyperspace. The human warships surrounded them from all sides. And worst of all, he could feel it now. Something was coming. Something worse than the Titan-class dreadnought. Then his communications officer turned, their scales ashen with terror. "Sir, we're receiving a direct transmission from the human flagship." Velarax swallowed. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and there stood General Darius Cole. His face was emotionless, his voice sharp as a blade. "Selfar Dominion, your time is over. You will surrender." Velarax gritted his teeth. "You think this war is over? Our homeworld will send more fleets, more armies. You cannot win." Cole tilted his head slightly. "Your homeworld." A small, cold smile formed on his lips. "Look outside." Velarax's blood ran cold. He turned toward the viewport, and his heart stopped. The fall of Exhilarating Prime. Far beyond the battlefield, a wormhole cracked open, and from its depths, an entire human armada emerged. Thousands of warships, Leviathans, Titan-class dreadnoughts, and something far worse. In the center of the fleet was a single black ship, unlike any other. A vessel made for one purpose: total planetary destruction. And its course: the Exhilarating homeworld. Velarax's breath hitched. This wasn't just a war anymore. This was extinction. Humanity had given them a chance to surrender. And now, they were going to show the universe what happened when that chance was ignored. A final plea. Velarax's claws shook as he turned back to the screen. For the first time in his life, he felt something alien. Pure, unrelenting fear. He dropped to his knees. "Please, mercy." Cole's expression did not change. "Mercy," he repeated. Then, for the first time, his voice carried emotion. "Did you show mercy to the worlds you burned?" Velarax had no answer, because deep down he knew there would be none. A message to the galaxy. As the human fleet moved, a single final transmission was sent to every major species in the galaxy. A simple message: "We tried to live in peace. You did not let us. Now you will learn why humanity avoids war." Then the feed cut off. And in the distance, the first human superweapon powered up. The end had begun. Velarax had always believed the Exhilarating were invincible. That belief was now shattered. On the view screen, his homeworld, Exhilarating Prime, filled the frame, its once proud cities bathed in eerie silence. Above it, the human armada had arrived. And at the center of it all, the black, monstrous warship loomed. UHXODUS. The ship's purpose was a mystery. There were no known records of it, no warnings, but Velarax could feel what it was. A planet killer. Humanity had been holding this weapon in the dark, hidden for centuries. And now it was aimed at his people. The last stand. A desperate cry for help had been sent to every Exhilarating colony. But there was no response. Not because they weren't coming, but because they were already gone. Humanity had struck every Exhilarating world at once. Velarax's hands trembled. "They planned this," he whispered. The humans had let the Exhilarating believe they were winning. They had lured them in. And now, at the perfect moment, they were wiping them from existence. His second-in-command turned to him, eyes wide with terror. "Sir, what do we do?" Velarax had no answer, because there was nothing left to do. The voice of humanity. The screen flickered. A new transmission came through. Not from a general, not from a soldier, but from the leader of humanity herself. President Gray stood in a darkened room, her expression grim and unreadable. "Self-our Dominion, this is your final warning." She leaned forward, her eyes piercing through the screen. "For centuries, we watched you burn worlds, enslave civilizations. We did nothing because we believed in peace." Her voice darkened. "That was a mistake." She gestured behind her. A holographic display of the galaxy appeared. Velrax's breath caught in his throat. Red markers covered the entire Exhilarating empire. Every colony, every fleet, every stronghold. Surrounded. "You called us weak," Gray continued, "because we never fought back. Because we never struck first." Her eyes narrowed. "You should have asked why." The screen flickered, and the Exodus fired. The fall of Exhilarating Prime. A beam of pure white energy erupted from the warship. It didn't explode the planet. It erased it. Like a brush wiping paint from a canvas, the surface of Exhilarating Prime disintegrated. Cities vanished. Mountains collapsed into dust. The mighty Exhilarating Empire, thousands of years old, was erased in less than a minute. The war was over, but humanity wasn't finished. A message to the galaxy. Across the galaxy, every species watched in terrified silence. No one had ever seen a weapon like this. No one had ever thought it possible. Then the final message arrived. A simple sentence. "We will not be threatened again." Then the transmission ended, and every empire knew the truth. The age of conquest was over, because humanity had awakened. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same again. The Exhilarating Dominion, once feared, once untouchable, no longer existed. Their fleets were ashes, their homeworld erased, their name now nothing but a warning to others, and in their place stood humanity. The aftermath. Across the galactic network, leaders of countless species gathered in secrecy. For centuries, they had treated humanity as a minor power, a background player. Now, they whispered in fear, because humanity had changed the rules, and no one knew what they would do next. A meeting with giants, on a hidden world, the Galactic Council convened. The great empires of the galaxy, those who had once ruled with iron fists, were now silent. No one dared to speak first. Then, the doors opened, and they walked in, the representatives of humanity. Unlike before, they did not bow. They did not plead for peace. They took their seat at the table, as equals, or perhaps as something more. President Gray's voice was calm. "The war is over." She looked at the leaders of the surviving empires. "We are not conquerors. We do not seek to rule." Her eyes darkened. "But understand this, never again will we be treated as prey." She leaned forward. "The old ways are done. A new order begins today." The silence in the room was absolute, because everyone understood. Humanity was not taking control of the galaxy. They didn't need to, because from this moment on, no one would ever dare challenge them again. A warning to all. The broadcast was sent across the stars, not as a threat, but as a final message. A simple phrase spoken by millions of human voices at once. Never again. The war had forged something new. Humanity had come in peace. But now they were something else entirely. The galaxy would remember this day forever, because it was the day humanity became legend.